Hello and welcome to the TMN Sports Podcast here at Fort Hays State University. My name is Mayan Paz. I'm a 400 hurdler on the track and field team and a junior in the political science department here at Fort Hays. We will have a panel of different TMN sports broadcasters and reporters every week. Today we have Garrett Wellbrock and Austin Meyer, and we will discuss the weekly events that go around Fort Hays State University, the MIAA, and also the NCAA Division 2. Today, we'll also have an interview with two men's soccer players from the Fort Hays team, midfielder Joseph Street and striker Bastian Karlman. Today, we'll start with football. We'll go over men's soccer that are currently ranked fourth nationally, and we'll go over the rest of the sports that currently play in FHSU. This is a weekly podcast, and we'll try to get you all of the action from FHSU athletics on a weekly basis. First of all, any introductions from you, Garrett and Austin?
I'm Garrett Wellbrock. I used to play baseball here at Fort Hays, so I kind of know a little bit about the athletic program and all these great sports, and also doing broadcasting now for Tiger Media Network. Been doing that since freshman year, so been really close to a lot of athletes in the sports. It's been real fun, and I'm excited to continue with this podcast.
I'm Austin Meyer. I'm a junior here at Fort Hays. I didn't play any sports here, but I run cameras and help with the broadcast, and I've done a few commentating with Garrett outside of TMN for high school games and pay attention to a lot of athletics, Division 2, Division 1, so I'm excited to be here as well.
For today, we'll start with football. They have a bye week this weekend and only one game left for the season. So far, we've seen a lot of up and downs from the football teams. Last week was, I think, a great example for a game that was up and down because they had the big lead against Central Missouri, then kind of lost it. But let's hear, what are your impressions from that football team we've seen this year so far?
I think you hit it right on the nail. Just like up and down year for sure. It sucks because they had a lot of expectations to go to the playoffs. Being 5-5 right now, even if they win last week, like 7-4 season, that's not a bad season. If they could have, win in 2 weeks against Emporia State, but just been a tough year for them. They've had a lot of games where it's just been close losses where they were like right there, and just a couple plays that didn't go their way, and so really outside of the Northwest Missouri State game, you could argue they could have won every game. Angelo State kind of beat them pretty bad week 1, but that was still, I don't think the score really reflected how close that game really was. So, yeah, I think it's a good time to have their bye week because they can regroup, get healthy, and try and finish the season strong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was there for the Angelo State game. It was a lot closer than what that score was. And then the Northwest Missouri game was just a rough one for those teams. So, but and then the last game, that big lead that you talked about, that was a rough way to end your final game at home. But they can bounce back like that. I feel like they can end the season with something positive to look at if anything.
Yeah, and I think we've seen from them that they can really either beat every team or, drop a game. But they do have the ability to beat every team in the MIAA. They played a really close game against Pitt State, which is, arguably the best team in the MIAA. But let's just reflect, what happened in your guys' opinion in last game that was especially hard to, to anticipate maybe from the Tigers' perspective that made them kind of lose the game?
Well, I mean, they were up 24-7 late in the third quarter, and the defense had a few breakdowns where they gave up some big plays, and it was really, in my opinion, I think the response that Central Missouri had was really quick. There was, I believe, first or second play of the drive after Fort Hays went up 17 that they hit on a big pass play for a touchdown to make it a 10-point game, and it just kind of swung the momentum back to UCM. If Fort Hays, even if UCM scores that possession, but they don't score in one play or whatever, one or two plays, then it's a completely different game, and just kind of floodgates opened after that. Fort Hays wasn't really able to get anything going on offense, and really in the fourth quarter, and they beat themselves a few times, had a lot of costly penalties, which has also been the story of the season. They've had too many penalties in big areas, and I mean that's kind of really what I saw from that game.
Those penalties are rough. I want to say they probably had around 10 the entire game, and there was a lot of holding and defensive call. There was one that I didn't think should have been called, which there was a pass interference call that I don't think necessarily was pass interference in my opinion, but it is what it is. But yeah, no, the flags have been a huge thing, but I think there was just a defensive kind of fell apart there towards the end. And the offense started off hot, it looked like, and then something changed kind of in that third quarter where they weren't really effective anymore.
About the pass interference, I think, that was like a 50-50 call, but I do think the officials were pretty consistent with the pass interference calls throughout the game because they called some against UCM in the first half, and I think UCM in the first half had like 10 penalties for over 100 yards. So I think maybe as a team you should anticipate that the officials have been calling pass interference all game, and you need to be mindful of that. Obviously, accidents can happen, but yeah, it's true that call made a big change in our game as well.
Well, honestly, for Fort Hays, their offense probably the best they've played on offense in a long time, just because they actually put up 24 points. I mean, we've seen them in the past few weeks where they have done nothing. They scored 14 against Central Oklahoma. They scored 3 against Northwest Missouri State, and then 13 versus Washburn. So, I mean, that's really nothing in terms of football. And so, yeah, they got 24. They ran it really well, 208 rushing yards. And a lot of the credit has to go to Caleb Heavner because he has been really good on the ground this season and his ability to run, not only pass, too.
Yeah, his running came out a lot there in that last game, too. I mean, what was it, that 75-yard run where he just fooled everybody on that read option?
Yeah.
Kind of that ran Kyle up to him towards the end. He kind of got gassed out at the end, but, I mean, it was still an exciting play, and I feel like that kind of stopped some energy. But, I mean, when you can't keep it going, it's kind of hard to keep pace with that. And I think they kind of went too hot there in that first half, and then after that, the sparks were kind of gone. They had that one pass from Heavner to Keyshawn Dooley that was kind of an exciting play, but after that. But I also say I think the score is completely different for that first deep pass to Jabari Lewis, where he was wide open, and it just, I don't know what happened, but reached out and it fell right through his hand.
I was just about to say that. I think there were like 3 plays in that game that really defined it. That drop pass from Lewis, that would have been a touchdown. Fort Hays missed a field goal, and then obviously an interception in the end zone where he tried to throw it off his back foot. It lobbed in the air a little bit, allowed the Central Missouri defender to get under that. I mean, that was a touchdown pass that was open. Those were 3 plays that completely changed the game. Those were 3 scores. Fort Hays might have had 40 points if you get those.
Right. And I mean, you look at it, there's nothing much you can do, I think, besides reset and go to the next game. And here's the thing, they can still have a winning season. We've been talking, despite not going to the playoffs, they can still have a winning season. And honestly, going to the playoffs is a really tough thing to do in the NCAA. And that kind of leads me to looking over the MIAA standings. So we have 2 teams, Northwest Missouri and Pittsburgh State, that are in the lead and are also ranked high nationally. And so how do you guys view that in terms of the strength of the MIAA compared to the other conferences, and how hard it is really to get forward from that conference?
It's the hardest conference in the country in Division II, in my opinion. There's only going to be 2 playoff teams, Pittsburgh State and Northwest, barring they, lose a game that they shouldn't lose. But, those 2 teams, they're obviously perennial powerhouses. But it's not just them that make the league good. It's the teams at the bottom. For example, Washburn and Missouri Western, Southern, Emporia. They're the bottom 4 teams right now. But yet they could be anybody any week. It's so deep of a league. Central Missouri was in the middle of the league, maybe a little bottom of the pack, and yet they have beaten good teams. They're 4-3 in the MIAA, and it's they're still a good team, and yet they don't even have that good of a record, 4-5. So the league is so tough, and that's why it's so hard to make it and get to the playoffs with, where you can only really lose 2 games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like that's something that people don't acknowledge is people are always looking at Fort Hays as they always have bad records. And I'm I don't think people understand how just hard MIAA is. Like, and I have heard people say it's the SEC of Division II, and I'm not going to argue with that because I think it's true. Like, it is so hard to win in this conference, and it's so hard to make the playoffs out of this conference, especially with Pitt State already being in this conference and being one of the top in all Division II. It's just so hard. Like, teams like UCO, they're not a bad team, but their record is right around what we are as well. So people just don't put into, like, factor how hard the MIAA is.
Well, and now you got Northwest, who seems to be back too. I mean, they had a couple down years past few seasons, not making the playoffs, right around 500, and they get a new head coach, and here they are again. And I mean, that's just going to make the league even tougher for teams like Fort Hays State to make playoff berths, especially when you have Pittsburgh and Pitt State and Northwest. I mean, that seems like 10 years ago all over again, where those two are always at the top.
So, I mean, it's been I don't know what the last time that it was that Northwest Missouri was what they were this year. It's starting to look like the MIAA is just going to get harder from here on out, especially with Northwest Missouri playing the way they are. They're just going to get more and more star players to their team, and it just adds to the mix with Pitt State, so it's just going to make it harder from here on out.
And we kind of look on the national ranking as well. So we have Pitt State and Northwest from our conference. They are both in the top 10, and as you guys said, they're probably the only ones that are going to make the playoffs based on the records now. Still, you got teams like Ferris State, who is consistently probably the best team in Division II. Do you guys think like competing in the MIAA gives them something else, maybe like the teams Pitt State, Northwest? Is that an advantage going to the playoff, or maybe a disadvantage? I mean, I can think about a situation when you get to the postseason and you're beat up because you had to battle for every single game.
I think it goes both ways for sure. Like, yeah, you play the good competition, but you could lose some guys. I mean, for Fort Hays State's example, like their O-line, they have two or three starters that have been hurt, and they're out right now. So, I mean, you got guys that are probably beat up, but it does give you an advantage. You've gone through a gauntlet of a schedule, and I think now with the super regions getting switched up where like Pittsburgh State and the whole MIAA, they can avoid Ferris and some of those teams until later on in the playoffs. You might get a softer opponent even in the playoffs than you would against a middle-of-the-pack MIAA team in the final week of the regular season. So I do think there's an advantage. It just goes both ways, yeah.
Yeah, no. And speaking of that gauntlet, like the people who like do the rankings acknowledge Pitt State's gauntlet. Like they're 7-2, but ranked 5th. Like I think they recognize that like Pitt State is 7-2, but that they're better than that record because the two losses they have are like very like hard teams. Like they played two of the best teams in the country, arguably, and they lost those two games. But 7-2 at 5th in the country is still super impressive, especially with what they had to go through immediately. Like it wasn't a midseason gauntlet. They got thrown into the season and had to play the hardest teams in the country. So I feel like that helps Pitt State out in a way of getting ready for the playoffs because, like, you've played playoff caliber teams for the first 4 weeks of the season. So I feel like your team is prepared and you're ready for that if you're Pitt State.
Okay, so Fort Hays State football, of course, will have another game against Emporia State on the road in a week and a half. They'll have a bye week this weekend. And so we move on to men's soccer. Men's soccer right now, they guaranteed the first seed in the GAC conference, which is the same as the MIAA for men's soccer. And they will host the GAC conference. They have a record of 10-0-1 in the GAC and 14-0 generally, so they're unbeaten. Maybe one of the most impressive seasons we've seen from any sports team here at Fort Hays, really. Especially for them, this is the highest they've been ranked in at least 5 years, and they have just been doing very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the best fall sport for any of the teams that have been playing at Fort Hays. And you got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, they've been ranked since the beginning of the season. They were ranked 23rd right at the beginning. They've gotten themselves all the way to number 4 without losing a game. And now you get to host the conference tournament. Hopefully, if they can handle business there, could probably host the regional. I mean, there's a lot of excitement going on with that program and with this town of Hays if you're a soccer fan.
It starts with that conference championship. It's just taking care of business, and then putting your focus onto the national championship game. You can't focus on that national championship week during this game because that's what's going to get you caught up. If they can keep focused on this conference championship, I think Fort Hays could be able to sneak into and bring home a national championship game, national championship. And I mean, when's the last time we've heard that happen here at Fort Hays? So I mean, that's really exciting if you're a Fort Hays fan.
Yeah, and so they're ranked fourth nationally. The way it works in soccer is that the best teams in each region host the first rounds of the NCAA. Right now, Fort Hays State is ranked first in the Central Region. So if they win the conference tournament, and perhaps even if they lose one game because they still have so much credit from earlier this season, they will host at least the first couple of rounds, maybe the third round as well. Then as soon as we get to the Elite 8 rounds, we'll have a concentrated tournament. I think it's Indiana. Colorado Springs.
Which honestly, though, for that, I mean, they went in 2018. They got to the semis, and they played in Pittsburgh, which, not many people are going to be able to travel out to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a weekend. Colorado Springs is only about 4.5 hours away, 5 hours. You can get some fans to go out there if they can make a run in the tournament.
Oh, absolutely. And there is a big soccer fan base here, too, at Fort Hays, from what I've kind of gathered. So I feel like at Colorado Springs, they'll be able to bring in a pretty nice Hays crowd. So that'd be pretty cool.
And here's the thing, they walk well. They have the best defense in the conference, one of the best defenses in the nation. Only conceded 6 goals, so less than 1 goal a game, much less than 1 goal a game on average. And they have also some of the best offensive players. Like they have Elias Semenyuk, scored 11 goals if I'm remembering correctly this season, and also players like Joseph Street with 10 assists, and Bastian Kalman. Those are the players we have interviewed today as well. And so they got some players that really lead the MIAA, the GAC, and even nationally. And that plays a big part. And here, I mean, and it's hard to recruit at that level, but I think it definitely helps. They won the GAC tournament last year, and they're trying to establish a really, really good program nationally.
I can only imagine how hard it is for head coach Alex Nichols to recruit because, I mean, yeah, you look at their roster and there's so many international players. You got to go to so many different countries. It's not just like, your average sport here at Fort Hays State where you can just get guys in the Midwest or, just in the area for the most part. I mean, you got to go across the world. And, I mean, talking to Bastian Karlman today, it was good to catch up with those guys. And, I mean, just how his story about coming from Sweden to here, it's just so remarkable how they've all been able to come together. And kind of like you said in the interview, Mayan, how it's a short, they probably have workouts in during the summer and stuff. But, I mean, it's the first sport of the year. I mean, August 1st or, first week of August when you're here before school even starts getting your practice in. It's got to be difficult, but they've all meshed together and have a great season going.
Yeah, and I feel like that's probably the toughest part is, like, getting recruits because, like, people don't really pay attention to that. Like, a lot of the players here aren't from America, and it's just so hard to, like, get them to be like, oh, Fort Hays is, like, I'm sure before they're getting recruited, they have no idea that Fort Hays, and I'm sure now with Fort Hays being as good as they are, there are people who know about it, but I feel like the recruiting process for soccer in America, trying to get those, like, international players is probably the hardest part of it, but I feel like they know what they're doing as they're putting together a really strong team, and I'm excited to see what this season ends like and what the future seasons ends up being.
Yeah, so they will play their final regular season game against Newman on the road this weekend, and actually it's more important for Newman this game because Newman is one of 3 teams that are battling for the final position in the GAC playoffs. And so Fort Hays is actually ahead of schedule. They'll play and then they have a bye week. So those teams will have another game after this weekend. But right now, Fort Hays has clinched the first seed. Rogers State is second, and they have clinched playoff berth. Only 4 teams make it in soccer GAC. And so we'll have Newman is right now third with 15 points. Northeastern State is also with 15 points at 4. And then Southern Nazarene is 5th with 14 points. So we have 3 teams that are really, really close to each other. And so every game is crucial. However, I don't see an option that Newman can beat Fort Hays because Fort Hays has been doing so well on focusing on their own game, and when they play that, they're just a better team than most GAC sides.
Well, I think the biggest thing you could look at is will Fort Hays take off, kind of their foot off the gas a little bit. They have the conference clinched. They're going to host the conference tournament. But I really don't think so because, even just talking to the players today, like they know that there's more ahead than just this conference tournament. Like they have a regional that they want to host. They want to be the number 1 seed. They want to have it here in Hays. If you drop a game to Newman, you're probably not going to get that, or it's going to be tougher rather to get that. And, then there goes your ranking a little bit. It'll drop down a few spots. Your seeding for the postseason beyond the conference tournament. So I don't think they will get or take their foot off the gas. I think, it's going to be hard for Newman to upset 4 days.
No, I agree. I don't think that they'll take the gas off the pedal. I feel like this week is a bigger week than people think. They want to host. Like, that's a big thing for Hays. Like, if they can host that here, I feel like that gives them the advantage from here on out. And so I really don't think that they're going to let up and let this opportunity go away.
Yeah, and so men's soccer, nationally ranked 4th, looking forward to keep on the good form. And we will move on, and next is women's wrestling, one of also best team in the season in terms of national rankings. Austin, do you want to do the introductions for women's wrestling?
Yeah. The exciting part is, like, they're bringing back so many people. Like, they didn't really lose anybody. And this is I believe, their 3rd season of this. And, they were one of the top teams immediately, too. Like, this program got started, and it just lit up. And they're taking on some of the best competition. Like, they're taking on, like, Oklahoma State and teams like that. And those are, like, some of the best wrestling programs out there, not just in the men's and in the women's. So being able to just go 3rd season, and it's hard to make a program and take off and be good at it immediately. Like, typically you have to build years of years, but they've just lit it up immediately. 3rd year here, and they're already number 7 in the nation, and 4 wrestlers are individually in the top 10 in their weight classes. Nicole Moore is 6th at 138. Dylan Richie is 8th at 145. Isabella Renfro is 5th at 180. Haley Conley is 8th at 207. So, you have the pieces there, and I'm going to be excited to watch that throughout the season. And I think they have a dual meet coming up here in the next few weeks. So it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, they got Oklahoma State on that November 15th date. Looking at their schedule a little bit, like there's nobody really in the area that has women's wrestling. So it is hard for them to really get scheduling. It's a shortened season, really, you look at it. They started their black and gold scrimmage on October 18th and then had some time off before going to the Maverick Open in Colorado, where they had 3 champions, 15 placers. It's just a really spread out schedule. It's kind of how wrestling works. You can't do back-to-backs, really. It's hard to do that. But their season wraps up in February 7th, which is pretty early for a winter sport. And it's really just coming down to women's wrestling is growing, but it's still not at its peak yet, I feel like. More and more programs are starting to, start. But that's where you're seeing, playing Oklahoma State's club team, you don't see that very often in the Division II world, going and playing D1. But also I'll mention the travel has to be a little tougher because there aren't many teams. There's no MIAA teams on their schedule. So no other MIAA programs have been really made. Fort Hays was kind of the starting point for Division II, and now you're starting to see more and more come along. But, yeah, they're going to have a tough time with that aspect on the travel side of things. Nowhere really close. But if they're a legit team, like we keep saying, it probably won't matter.
Yeah, no, I'll be excited to watch, especially their season is short, but then you get to your conference tournament, which is like the biggest thing because, you could go in there as the number 1 ranked in your class, but, if someone wrestles better than you that day, you could have someone who's a 16 seed end up going into the national championship tournament seated higher than you because they wrestled better than you that day at the conference championship. So that's what is so cool about wrestling is someone who's a lower seed or lower ranked or not as good as a record as you can end up doing better than you just based off of how they do that day. So that's the cool thing about wrestling is every duel and tournament can change so quickly every single time just based on that. So it's really cool to watch, and I'm excited to see how this girls team does in their 3rd year with a lot of expectations.
So moving on, we got some other teams that are in season right now. One of them is cross country, and they're wrapping up on their season soon enough. They have their regional meet this upcoming weekend, and in a couple of weeks, nationals. And it is a question whether they can make it to nationals, especially as a team. But we can reflect a little bit about the MIAA championships from a couple of weeks ago. So the main headline is Emily McCullough, and she won the MIAAs. That's the second year in a row she has won that title in cross country. So she is really a power in the MIAA, probably the best cross country athlete we've seen, men's or women's, at Fort Hays in a while.
I mean, yeah, the accolades speak for themselves. With McCullough, coming from Colby Community College, didn't have as many years here at Fort Hays that probably could have, but in her time has definitely taken full advantage. Also a local kid, Hoxie, Kansas native, so not too far of a drive, about an hour or so from there, and she's done a great job. And congratulations to her winning the MIAA championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having someone like at that caliber is always nice to have, and it's cool to watch what she's done here in this short time here at Fort Hays. So, like Garrett said, congrats to her, and I'm excited to see what she can do to finish off the season.
And it's really interesting because she was brought in a couple of seasons ago and she was hurt at the beginning, couldn't compete her first outdoor season. But then she emerged last year as a cross country athlete, also continued as a track long distance runner as well, being one of the best athletes in the MIAA. And yeah, I think, she's definitely the headline of that cross country team. She made it to nationals this year. It's to be expected that she will make it to nationals this year as well. And it all comes to the regionals meet. They have two qualification systems for nationals at cross country. So the teams that finish in the top 5 at the region, they are qualifying to nationals, and also the top athletes individually qualify as athletes. So it's interesting to see. I mean, as other sports, similar to other sports, the MIAA is also very strong in track and field and cross country. So Fort Hays women's and men's, they both finished 6th in the MIAA. Now, when you go to the region, it's a little tougher, but you already saw a lot of the competition at the conference meet. So it's gonna be interesting to see if the women's, especially when they're led by McCullough, if they can make that transition and get to that next level.
Yeah, they got the Central Regional coming up November 8th at 10 a.m. So good luck to everybody that is running in that Central Regional, and hopefully they can find a way. And 2 weeks later, they got the NCAA championships.
Yeah, and just a quick word about the men's team. We have Christian Dara leading that team. He was 8th at the MIAA championships, and he will be the men's leading contender for placement in the regional meet. And so we'll move on and we'll get to volleyball next. They're also wrapping up the regular season soon. They have 4 games left. Right now they're 7th in the MIAA. They need to stay in the top 8. And so looking at the schedule, they play some direct opponents on the qualification, but they also play Washburn and Missouri Western that are nationally ranked. So what do you guys think is the probability for them to maintain that position? It's really tight up there, but every team has to play the tough teams in the MIAA. Also, another sport with 4 teams in the MIAA are ranked in the top 20 nationally.
Well, yeah, top 20. I mean, after Emporia State, I mean, you have your toughest battle. Yeah, I mean, taking on Washburn, who is the number 2 in the country. I mean, that's a game that you have to be ready for, and I feel like they can, especially with it being at home. That's a huge game to stay in the race there if they can knock off number 2 Washburn, and then right after that you take on number 23 Missouri Western. So you have those 2 games where after Emporia State, if you can take care of business against Emporia State, you have 2 opportunities to kind of prove that you do belong here in this conference in the volleyball, and I think they can get that done. And those being at home are like really huge for that team.
Yeah, for volleyball, they've played 4 ranked teams so far in the MIAA, and they haven't taken a set from any of them. They've gotten swept in all 4. but they've been competitive. So you can't just look at that and say, oh, they have no chance. Like, they're losing 25-22, 25-21, 25-23. It's just they're close. It's just they need a couple plays to go their way, and maybe they can take a set or two from a very good ranked team. Washburn's going to be difficult, but Missouri Western right behind them, they're going to need that game for sure. I think they need at least 2 of the 4 here at home if they want to make a chance to get in to the tournament. And you got Northwest and Emporia who are unranked, but those will still be difficult matchups for them. I think for Fort Hays State's sake, having 4 home games will be good for them. You don't want to go on the road in that situation to try and make up some ground. You'd rather be at home.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, and that's a huge opportunity too to stay alive is you don't have to travel for the rest of the year. And none of these are going to be easy, ranked or unranked. I mean, this is the end stretch of any season in sports is always the hardest because that's where every team is looking for something to spark the end of their season, especially teams that are on the outside looking in. This is like, it's their do or die kind of part of the season. So, like, all of these teams are looking to get in or prove a point. And the teams that, like, even if they win out, can't get in, those are the teams that are going to look to win more because they're going to try to ruin other teams' seasons and kind of knock you off too. So you kind of have to just take care of business and be focused, especially that Emporia State and Northwest Missouri State games, like those being ranked. You can't play Emporia State but be looking ahead at Washburn. They can focus on the games that they have coming up and then worry about the ones after those. I think they can take care of business and prove a strong point in those next 4 games.
And Emporia, they're not nationally ranked, but they're 4th in the conference ahead of Central Oklahoma, which is nationally ranked. So Emporia State is a really strong team as well, and really every team in the MIAA. So many sports, I think the MIAA just dominates, and you can see that in volleyball because you have Nebraska County and Washburn in the top national ranking of Division 2. And you got Central Oklahoma, Missouri Western University also ranked up there. So it's making it very difficult, but I do think we have a good chance of seeing those MIAA teams if we look, at the national level tournament, and we can talk about it in the upcoming weeks as well as we go closer to the national tournament. But I do think we have a good chance of seeing an MIAA team really showing up and make some noise in that tournament. Next, we'll have women's soccer. They have 1 game left in the season at home on Wednesday, November 5th. They'll play against University of Nebraska County. And women's soccer, they have been eliminated from playoff contention a few games ago. They still play. Last game, they had the lead against Rogers State, and that was a game they drew eventually. Rogers State equalized with about 2 minutes left to play. And so I think the main thing for women's soccer is that we can think is they have a lot of youngsters in the squad and in the lineup. Their goalkeeper is a freshman. One of their midfielders is a freshman. So they have a lot of youngsters. So that team can develop really well. But also, on the other hand, they lose a few seniors that are a vital part of this team. And especially, you got Sydney Cotter, which scored 6 goals and contributed 4 assists as well this season. So it's interesting to see that process of replacing those experienced players with freshmen, and we'll have to see how well they can do in the off season in terms of preparation for next year.
Yeah, kind of like what you said. I'm seeing that too. Like, this is a really young team, so you can't really ignore that. Like, you kind of have to put that into focus as well. Is like a lot of this team are people who are still in their first or second year of college athletics. Some of them, the sophomores, could still be in their first because we don't know. Like, if they didn't play last year and they come in here, technically it's still their first. So like, this team can get better, especially with it being a very young team. Losing the seniors is going to hurt, but you can just build a lot more with the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors that you have, and you're going to bring more in. So it's kind of a building process that'll be interesting to watch with most of this team being freshmen and sophomores. So, I mean, you can just build off of this and not look at this season as a complete loss. Like, you can rebuild and make your team stronger at this point. And if they can focus on that, I think these upcoming seasons could be really fun to watch and see how they kind of turn things around and build on that.
Yeah, 6 out of their 11 losses were one point losses. So, you flip the script around a little bit. You could you could flip that from last year, or for next year, where the 6-1 score losses are actually wins, and you flip your whole season around from a 3-11 year to a 9-5 season. So it just goes both ways. Like you said, they're a young team. They'll have more experience next year, and we'll see what they can build on in the off season.
And looking at the MIAA, we have two teams that are nationally ranked. Those are Central Missouri and Washburn. They're 18 and 19 respectively. But the interesting thing for me is actually Pitt State in women's soccer. So they're ranked second in the MIAA right now. And the thing is, that's only their second season as a soccer program for women's. They've added that program last year. And I was at the game when they came in here to play at Hayes. And that was maybe the team that I've seen in the MIAA with the most discipline on the field, which I thought that was really impressive how they did that. So they also beat Central Missouri, the nationally ranked team, and they're on a 5-win streak. Pitt State only in their second season. I think there's something that is developing there, and we see Pitt State, they dominate a lot of sports, so maybe women's soccer programs elsewhere should be worried a little bit. But this is just very interesting to me to see how a team that comes strong off the ground, and kind of like we mentioned, our women's wrestling, a new team builds up and already up there nationally and competes with the best teams.
I mean, that's something you don't see very often too, is like teams that can just be founded and immediately just take off. Like you don't really see that in any sport, like in that aspect. Like you just don't see it that often. So it's really cool to see, especially in our own conference. It's just kind of cool and unique to see that, like how a team can just be built from the ground up and just take off like that. And like you said, a very disciplined team. And that's always good to have is on a young team, on a young program at that point, is if you can have them disciplined and playing with discipline. I mean, that's always something that you can look at positively, and they can only build from that as well.
Well, one thing I know is there's some great donors down there in Pittsburgh, and they love their sports at Pitt State, and so you get one real soccer fan, and he just wants to spend a lot of money on a program. You can really start from the ground running, and it also comes with getting the right coach too. They have gotten Wes Brandstetter, who's done a great job there, 8-8 last season, and now look where they've just taken off in 2 years. It's pretty impressive.
And yeah, so last sport we'll be covering today, because they're also in season, is men's wrestling. They start the season in the upcoming weekend. They have one wrestler, Matthew Rodriguez, who's ranked 12th in the under 184 pounds weight class. Austin, how do you see that team coming into the season?
I think they have a lot that they want to prove this year. It's not just like individual wrestlers, the whole team, as they're looking to win like team titles and team championships at tournaments. And they do lose a huge one, but he goes to the coaching staff, Terrace Henry, who is coming off of a runner-up as in the national championship last year, which I think is the first time. I don't even think 2000s. It might have been early 2000s the last time they had someone in the national championship match. But, I mean, he went on a run in that tournament last year. He beat the 2 and the 3 seed immediately as I want to say the 7th seed in that. So losing that is huge. But getting back, like you said, Matthew Rodriguez is 12th right now at 184, and he is an absolute stud. I mean, since he's gotten here, he has just been impressive to watch. And so I'm excited to see what this new coaching staff can do on the wrestling. And they have a lot of young guys like Julian Kimling is someone that I've kind of seen a lot at 149. He's a freshman. I'm excited to see how involved he gets. He's from Pittsford, Michigan. So it's excited to see what this team. You also have Marcel Deli coming back. He's a junior. And DeAndre Brown is a redshirt junior. And so they have a lot of experience on this team. And I think they'll be able to be one of the top teams in their league. I mean, and they take on a pretty decent schedule. A lot of tournaments, so not much as duels, but Central Missouri will always be a tough one, especially with being on the road. And Nebraska Kearney is also always a really tough one. They're a really solid team. So I'm kind of interested to see what they can do and bounce back from last year.
They got a good roster, a pretty deep roster too, for sure. I got a Kevin Honus in a couple of my classes, so he's mentioned some stories about the team and stuff, and He believes also, they've got high expectations. So, the wrestling. I don't know a ton about wrestling, but that's more your thing, Austin. But I do know that, like, just as any sport here at Fort Hays, like, there's pride in this program and all the programs here, and they want to do well. They want to be at the top of the league in every sport, and wrestling's no different.
Yeah, I want to say it like at the final part of this. We'll see how like this team is made of at the Bob Smith Open here at Fort Hays, because that is where a lot of tough teams come. Like Oklahoma State will be here, Air Force, Colorado State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State in the men's wrestling is top 3 every single year. Like that is a history-rich program, Oklahoma State, and so they don't send their main guys. But I mean, if you're wrestling Oklahoma State, you're one of the best. So they're taking on like top talent early in the season. So December 7th, they're gonna get to take on some of the top, not just in the Division II, but in Division I and Division II that are all going to be here. And it's going to be super fun to watch that tournament and see what guys on this team are going to be the guys. And I think there's a lot of people on this roster that can be those guys.
And we will go in depth into that team as well as other teams as they go into their season. Next week on this podcast, we'll also discuss men's and women's basketball as they will line up to prepare for their season openers after that scrimmage they had against Kansas University in Lawrence. We will be here weekly for you with updates from FHSU Athletics. And for today, this would be it for me, Mayan Paz, Garrett Wellbrock, and Austin Meyer.